Hey, it's Vera Carter. We're going to continue our optics series for precision rifle shooting, and today I'm going to talk about how to mount your scope on your rifle. You can see I have my scope here, which is a direct mount onto my action. So in this case, the scope rings, you can see I have a split ring here, and the bases are directly screwed into the action. The rings are machined from aircraft aluminum, which gives it strength while being light, and also the aircraft aluminum gives a little bit, so you're less likely to crush your scope tube, which is really important to watch for when you're tightening these down. The other thing to point out too with these is the rings are machined from a single piece of aluminum and then cut. And so to preserve the precision that's been machined into it, don't switch the tops of your rings. Some of the ring manufacturers actually will mark 1, 1 and 2, 2 on the rings just so that you don't accidentally switch them. But as you're taking them off, you might want to just put some sort of marking system on it just so that they don't get mixed up. Not the end of the world, but like I say, you've got some lovely precision here. Why don't you maintain it? The other mounting systems for scopes are rail systems, and you can have a dovetail rail or dovetail base or a Picatinny base. Now a dovetail base is essentially that it's a dovetail where your bases are going to slide onto the dovetail and then you'll screw them down to tighten them. The problems with the dovetail base is that they can walk on the action with recoil. Now you see the nice thing about this direct mount system is this scope is not going to go anywhere when it's tightened in this securely. With the dovetail system, you can see that if you can imagine the rifle is recoiling backwards with a lot of violence, and as this recoils, if you haven't securely mounted your bases to the dovetail, then your scope is going to walk forward. And I had that happen to me once when I was switching scopes around and I wasn't tightening it up as much as I should have, and my front base actually fell off the front of the gun. Now that wasn't a big catastrophe, but certainly I'm not sure how many targets I would have shot where I was wondering why in the heck I couldn't hit where it was aiming, because of course the scope is loose and flopping around. Not a good thing. With the other rail system we're talking about then is the Picatinny, and the Picatinny was manufactured, it was adopted by the US in about 1913, and that rail system, it has slots that are machined into the rail, which essentially form recoil lugs, and they adopted the rail system that the howitzer was using just to keep it from walking with the recoil. The nice thing about the Picatinny rail is that they're all standardized spacing. So if you buy a Picatinny rail, it doesn't matter from which manufacturer, they'll have needed to adopt the US standardized spacing measurements just to call it the Picatinny rail. So you can, and they're numbered, the slots are numbered, so you can take a scope and put it back in the numbered spots and it'll hit the same point of impact. So it's a lovely standardized system that the US military's adopted. The other thing about the rails for the rails for your optics is there's minute of angle adjustment can be put into them for long range shooting. Now just because I have a direct mount, it doesn't mean I couldn't add minute of angle. That machine can also machine ring bases with adjustment for minute of angle for long range shooting. So you can custom make your rings if you want to adopt this system for your scope. So when we want to get to mounting a scope, irrespective of what base system we've got, you need to mount the scope tube in the rings. So of course your top rings lift off, you put your tube in it, of course elevation up, that's a no-brainer. Tighten down the rings just tight enough so that you've got some friction on the scope tube so it holds it in place. Similarly with the bases, you'll want to keep them floating a little bit, but tighten them down enough so that it's going to hold your setting. You want to get behind the gun, shoulder the gun, and put your head in a natural position, and then slide the tube in the rings until it's far enough back that you've just got the eye relief of the scope. Don't push it back too far because you're going to hit your forehead. You hit your forehead on the scope, or it'll hit you in the forehead. You become a member of the Half Moon Club because this is sharp and the gun recoils fairly hard, and you're gonna bleed like a stuck pig because your scalp bleeds when you cut it, and it's just not a good thing to be walking around the range with a half moon imprinted on your forehead. Also, it'll set you up for recoil, or for flinching. You can get a really nasty flinch if you get hit in the face with the scope a couple of times. So don't set yourself up for that. Set your eye relief properly, and make sure that the reticle is absolutely level. Some shooters don't realize the significance of this, but if that vertical reticle is off plumb, you're going to change your point of impact as you change elevation, and you don't want that to happen. So there are gadgets and gadgets out there that you can hang a bubble off this to level it. The idea is you level your action with a bubble, and then you level this with a bubble. You can eyeball this. It's not that difficult. And what you do at to verify that it's level is slide your gun back and forth in a set of sandbags, and that vertical reticle should track up and down without moving sideways left or right. So that's just a quick way to check that. Once you're done, torque these down. Follow the manufacturer's instructions both for the bases and the rings. You don't want to spring or put unnecessary tension on your action, and you don't want to crush the tube. So the manufacturers might give you a torque setting, and if so, you could go out and get a torque screwdriver to do this. Tighten them up incrementally like you would tightening up your lug nuts on a wheel rim on the car. Okay, so just a bit on each one, and rotate it around until you've come to your final torque setting and you've mounted a scope on your rifle. What I'll do is I'll put any links to information that I've mentioned here on my blog. And this is Vera Carter. If you're watching this anywhere except my blog, precisionshooting.ca, head on over there. That's where the comments are. There's additional free content there, and I'll be reading the comments. I'd appreciate your feedback, what you thought of this, whether you thought I needed to have disassembled this and shown you actually how to pull it apart. Whatever information you can give me, I'd love your feedback. So if you're watching this on YouTube, give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down. Any feedback is good. And until the next time, let's stay on target.